emergency, as we call it, was the EIB that started issuing green bonds, and by chance issuing them at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, and the Luxembourg Stock Exchange getting somehow implicated in the issuing of green finance instruments, and that was soon not exclusively the EIB's green bonds, but also green bonds from other EU countries, and also at one time also green bonds from other parts of the world. So basically Luxembourg, by let's say drafting a line, figuring out that that the Luxembourg Stock Exchange being the hub for half of the green bonds in terms of assets that are listed worldwide, and this also helped to create another ecosystem, the one of microfinance in Luxembourg. And from these two, I think the Luxembourg sustainable finance sector, if I may call it sector, grew up. I think globally we have not only a climate crisis, but we have also a biodiversity crisis. The extinction of a lot of species, I think that's a real difficult issue to tackle. And in addition, also a global resource crisis. And I think the additional themes that we bring in with the Global Landscape Forum and some of the panels at the Sustainable Finance Regional Roundtable will help to bring these issues also to the more mainstream sustainable finance people. In buildings, we are very progressive when it comes to new buildings. So the standards are very high and they are mandatory. So every single new building that is built in Luxembourg for housing is a passive house, so not net zero energy, net zero emissions when it comes to CO2 emissions. Yet we have a long way to go for the existing building sector, and that's not easy. We have estimated that when we want to be on track for our 2030 emission reduction goals, that then we need a renovation of 3% of the houses per year, and to renovate them at least onto 72% energy efficiency. And that's a huge workload, and that is also let's say to convince people that are living in their houses that they might have renovated 20 years ago, to convince them to move out and do further renovations. That's not an easy job, even not in Luxembourg, and I think there we need also to be innovative. Public transport, we are investing a lot. We are very much looking forward that there will be new electric cars on the market, because we have also ambitious goals for electromobility, but the offer needs to be there. If you only come with a subset of 10 different cars that you can buy, maybe I'm exaggerating right now, but not a large choice, then Luxembourgers that tend to have always the newest cars will not switch, whereas if the fleet will be much broader, then I'm convinced that the Luxembourgers will switch into electromobility, and this will help us a lot. Another sector which is very tricky is fuel exports, and that can only be tackled by tax rises, because if the tax is lower here, let's say if lorries are fueled up with us, so that's a tricky political decision to be taken. Is very challenged, or landscapes are under threat at several regions of the world. And there are regions where basically the possibility of landscapes to capture carbon is very important, and for this very reason it's important to manage them in a way that we at least maintain their ability to capture carbon when not even increasing their ability to capture carbon. For instance, we have launched the so-called Forestry and Climate Change Fund that focuses on the sustainable management of secondary forests in Central America. And this is basically what I expect for landscape management, because it focuses on secondary forests, mainly forests that have been no forests before because of either hurricanes or agricultural land management that at one period cut down or, let's say, destroyed the forest. And now forest coming back, being a large sink for CO2 emissions, but only when managed in a sustainable way. So basically you cannot now grow a forest and then cut it down again in 10 years, because that would not be helpful. And this project is really the way on how we look for it. So getting some economic value of these forests is not impossible, but only in a way that makes the CO2 emissions at least net zero when not negative, and basically they should be negative at these landscapes, but still helping local communities to earn money by harvesting in a very sustainable way. And I think that's very important. And that's needed also at larger scale, because some countries, what we are looking at is really threatful for the global planet also when it comes to landscape management.